Greetings from Las Vegas. This is Jeff Chain, the owner-broker of Millennium Commercial Properties. I'd like to thank Simon for inviting me back today. We're going to talk about a different subject. Some people call them mini storage. Some people call them self-storage. They're nationwide. Well, in that fact, they're probably worldwide because everybody has too much stuff. No matter what size house you have, you still have stuff that won't stay in your house. You want to find an off location to store it. And if you're like my family, you typically put it in there and it rarely ever comes out. However, there's just a huge demand in mini storage, and self-storage are probably the hottest piece of the commercial market for that reason. People just, regardless of size, they just have more demand for storage than it's ever afforded in a house. There are two types of self-storage. There's climatized, which we need out here in Las Vegas because it gets very, very hot and dry, like lots of parts of the country. And then other parts of the country get exceptionally cold, so that can damage anything in storage. So non-climatized space is far cheaper to rent than something that's climatized. There again, climatized would have air conditioning or swamp coolers and heaters to keep your stuff that you're storing at relatively good temperature. The big challenge is everybody is getting into self-storage. Like I say, it's the number one demand thing for a couple reasons. One, it is very low on management and maintenance. Typically, the smaller units don't even have an on-site manager. Everything's done automatically via credit card apps and access codes. And then the medium to larger ones have a full-time employee, typically a husband and wife, that actually live on the property and take care of all the issues. So it's very low maintenance and management overhead. Nationwide, the average rate for self-storage is $16.42 per foot per month or per year for storing, and that's a national average. I picked a couple of out. Phoenix is slightly lower. They're at 15.65, and their growth rate over the past couple months is up 0.02%. Las Vegas is 15.28 per square foot, and Las Vegas has lots and lots and lots of new inventory coming out of the ground. Banks love mini storage because it's recession proof. They're very basic, simple in the operations, but there are a lot of them coming around up out of the ground. So competition is extremely strong in a lot of cities, especially Las Vegas. You're not going to find anything on the open market. Occasionally, something will trade at very low cap rate numbers. So there again is the income versus the total purchase price. So you don't see a whole lot of opportunities in Las Vegas. So we're going to talk about some of the other cities in the country. For example, Las Vegas has 14.4% growth in new self-storage coming online. At some point, we're going to peak out and rates are going to start to fall. That's just economics 101. The first unit we're going to talk about is in Palm Springs. It's a smaller 18,000 foot rentable area. It's built in 1972. This is owner operated. However, there's not a manager on site. There's really no need for a manager on site. It's $194 a foot, $3.5 million purchase price. It's going to be in the 5.5 cap range. Financing is readily available for any of these properties we're going to talk about. And this one at 3.5 is on the lower end of what you're going to see because there again, it's self-managed from afar, all electronic. The next one's in Bandon, Oregon, which is a beautiful part of the Northwest. It's part of a portfolio, this of two different properties. This particular property is 29,000 feet, built in 1985 for $6 million. And it's part of a larger portfolio where you could put them together. This one would have an on-site manager that could manage all of your different properties. In this particular case, they controlled 95% of the submarket around Bandon with the two different properties. Nothing new coming online. So it's a great market where you could have some upside in rent because you're the only game in town. The next one is Kennewick, West Virginia, or excuse me, Washington, in the Yakima area, which is central Washington in the Northwest. Very strong in the outdoor sports. So people store bikes and ski-doos and skis and just all the outdoor recreation stuff, as well as just the normal household goods. This was built in 1990 and it's 16,585 feet. There again, there would not be a manager on site. It's all done remotely. You would have somebody to come by for maintenance checks and things like that. This, I believe, is the lowest price one at $1,900,000, which is $114 per square foot. They've historically run at 100% occupancy, which is not unusual in this space. Across the country, it's tough to find vacancy unless it's very poorly maintained and managed. The next one is McKay, Idaho, and it's in the southern part of Idaho. It was built in 1921, relatively new, 19,000 square feet for $72 a foot for $1,380,000. It's another great mix of units, relatively new, so they're in the lease-up phase. Typically, it takes about 3 years, give or take, to fully stabilize and lease up a self-storage project. The next one is in Kingman, Arizona, which is about an hour and a half from Las Vegas to the southeast in the northern part of Arizona. It was built in 1990. It's 17,800 square feet. Same thing, it's unoccupied by manager, maintenance guy, but you can have somebody in town on a part-time basis come in and check and everything else, but everything is done online for all the applications, the evictions, all the paperwork. You never have to interact. This is at $3.15 million, $176 a foot, and it's a 5% cap. 5% is probably a little low. We'd like to think in a lot of markets, cap rates are in the 7. In the real tertiary markets, which this may be considered, maybe a 7.5 and even 8. So this is overpriced, but it's on the market. So it doesn't mean you can't make an offer. So it's on the market at $3.15 million, $176 a foot. And there's expansion opportunity, which you'll find in a lot of these deals. They built X amount of units, that was their financing, but typically they have land for expansion. Not a lot of expansion, but you can maximize the space, and rarely, other than in the big cities, are they more than one story. All the ones we've talked about are all single story units. You can go to 2-story. There's just some logistics, and you'd have to rebuild part of it just to support the second story. Some of the big box units in retail centers, which we talked about a couple episodes ago, where supermarkets or soft good retailers have moved out and everybody's trying to figure out what to do, especially in some of the bigger cities, mini storage is a great solution because you can typically do 2 stories inside. The shell of the building's already there. The only obstacle is zoning. You'll get some pushback, and some of the other retail tenants, since mini storage doesn't generate a lot of foot traffic. Typically, you come in, you put all your stuff in it, and more than likely, a year later, you may come back to visit it. So it's not a traffic generator, but it does provide a solution for some of these big box uses that just nobody else can figure out what to do. There again, this one in Kingman's $3.15 million in expansion opportunities. The last one's a little bit bigger. This is in North Carolina, which is probably one of the fastest growing areas of the United States. There's lots of tech, lots of banking, lots of housing. The North Carolina, South Carolina markets are one of the hottest housing markets. This is brand new for all practical purposes, built in 2022. It's 66,000 feet. It does have an on-site manager. This was on the market for $9.9 million, $149 a foot. There are many storages that go up into, well, somebody sent me one yesterday. It's $55 million in the heart of Los Angeles. It's a multi-story. It's at a 6 cap, totally different level of financing. However, that financing exists out there. Lifeco, or life insurance company financing, which is probably the most favorable rates, love mini storage as well. So you can get some high leverage, long-term rates because they know it's never going to be empty. People are always going to have stuff to store. This is Jeff Chain with Millennium Commercial Properties. I want to thank you for viewing this. I want to thank Simon for allowing me to be here today. And once again, please follow up and watch me on Iranian Global TV every Wednesday. Thank you very much.